Tonight on College Press Box, Texas baseball turns the season around.
Track and field set NCAA records.
Isaiah Taylor decides on the NBA draft.
All this and more on College Press Box.
Welcome to the 40 Acres favorite sports show, College Press Box. I'm Katerina Biancardi with Luke Hendry. And Luke, what a weekend it was in Texas sports. Texas baseball surprised us on the diamond. What did you take away?
Well, there was no doubt it was a big weekend for Texas baseball. A big win in Lubbock against Texas Tech, and it seems like they may have a new swing of things heading into postseason.
And so, Luke, about the UT Rio Grande Valley game, how did that fare?
Texas baseball hosts UT Rio Grande Valley last Tuesday. College Press Box Jonathan Polasic was at the game. Let's head to Dish Falk Field for the highlights. Texas took the early deficit, going down 3-0 to UT Rio Grande Valley. Eddie Delgado's wild pitch there in the bottom of the fifth sparked a UT comeback. Delgado struggled from the mound. He had not one, but two wild pitches that allowed Joe Baker to coast in and tag home to take the early lead. Cody Clements at bat in the bottom of the eighth bombs one to right field for the home run to reclaim a one-run advantage over UT Rio Grande Valley. That was Clements' fourth home run in his freshman year and closed out one of his best games at bat. Texas's late charge in this matchup displayed poise against a non-conference program. Chase Shugart closed out for the Horns, and a quick throw right here from Joe Baker to Casey Clemens clinched the victory as Texas went on to win 7-5.
Texas baseball walked away victorious against nationally ranked Texas Tech this past weekend. The Horn clinched the series 2-1 after losing the Game 1 6-13. In Game 2, the Horns came back from a 3-run deficit and rallied a 7-4 victory. On Sunday in Game 3, Texas belted out 3 home runs and 14 hits to win the series 2-1. The Horns handed the Red Raiders their first series loss this season. So, Luke, we have some Texas side baseball talk ahead of us, and we welcome to the studio tonight Elissa Killebrew. Elissa, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great. I'm ready to talk some Texas baseball.
All right, guys, let's get right into it. It seemed all the odds were against the Horns when they entered Lubbock this past weekend. Many would have predicted the Red Raiders to sweep away the series, but Texas certainly threw a curveball to those fair-weather Texas fans. After winning the series 2-1 against top-ranked Texas Tech, Texas gained their 4th conference series win this season. What are the positive takeaways the Horns can get from this series, Elissa?
Well, I would just like to start out by saying that I did not think Tech would sweep Texas this weekend. I thought Texas would bring it out and at least win one game, but much less winning 2 games in their last game 17-1, that was insane. So basically a bunch of young players came out and finally stepped up to the plate, something we've been waiting for Texas to do all week, all season. So Joe Baker was Big 12 Player of the Week. He got 1 home run, 6 RBIs in that last game on Sunday, along with Patrick Mathis, Zane Gerwitz, and Tyler Rand with 3 RBIs each. It was just a great day for Texas baseball. I'm not really sure what happened. I wish they aired that game, but 17-1, incredible. And Kyle Johnston only allowed 4 hits and 1 run. That's a great outing for Kyle Johnston, such a young player coming in as a sophomore, doing great work. That was Texas Tech's first conference series loss and Texas's 4th conference series win. I'm really excited about this because it's going to be a great future, a great few weeks for the Texas Longhorns.
And Luke, a lot of underclassmen stepped up to the plate this weekend. What are your positive takeaways?
Yeah, I think the big thing, as I said earlier this year, was Texas baseball had to rely on the young guys throughout this season, and that's why I think it was a very up and down so far. What they have to do is roll from what they did in Lubbock this past weekend and use that momentum throughout the remaining season.
All right, guys, now zooming out a little bit, Texas baseball is 9-6 in Big 12 play and is 19-21 overall. The Horns have struggled with consistency this season. What are their chances for this Texas team to get back on track and finish with a winning regular season? Elissa?
You know, I'm not really worried about Texas. They only have 3 Big 12 games left, and that's against West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. Not really worried about West Virginia and Baylor. They're not very good right now. Oklahoma State's going to be a tough one coming up this weekend. They're 9-6 in conference play as well. They just won a big game or a big series against TCU this past weekend, so they're coming off momentum as well. The biggest issue with Texas this year has been the young players coming in, not really knowing what the gist of the team is, having your biggest junior players, Tres Barrera, Casey Clemens, leading the team, and it's just been a struggle. You know, Augie Garrido has been using these Tuesday games to figure out who to put in the lineup, which young players to put out there, which young players to put on the mound. So it's just been a struggle so far. They've lost 4 consecutive Tuesday games, and that's been the biggest issue. They brought it back when they beat UT Rio Grande Valley this last Tuesday, and I think that really helped the momentum get them into this tech play this past weekend. But as for the future, it's going to be totally fine. You know, I think Texas baseball is going to really play off of this momentum, and they're going to get excited going into the rest of the regular season and going into the postseason as well.
And Luke, how do you think Texas will fare to gain that winning regular season?
Yeah, I think for this team, it's going to be to continue to clean up the errors on the defensive side of the field. It's very, very clear that this team struggled with that in the midseason. They're young. They need to carry this momentum forward with positive attributes and not let the excitement of potentially doing well in the postseason get to them. Just continue to play solid baseball and clean up the errors.
All right, and speaking of the postseason, last season Texas baseball surprised fans when they won the Big 12 Conference Tournament and advanced to regionals. Does this Texas team have the potential to have the same type of postseason success? Elissa?
Oh, well, absolutely. You know, Texas, I saw Texas 2 years back when they went through regionals, went through super regionals, qualified for the World Series. They were not expected to go to the World Series that year. Yes, they had a great incoming freshman class, but they were not expected to go as far as they did. You know, I think they can definitely pull it out this year. And last year when they won the Big 12 tournament, that wasn't expected either. It's going to be totally up to this Texas team at how far they go. And, you know, I really think it's going to be totally fine because every single year Texas kind of starts out slow. They spend a lot of time trying to gain momentum, trying to heat up. And they're heating up just at the right time as they have 3 Big 12 teams left to play. And Ty Colbert said in an interview last week that the team is really getting into the groove, getting into the motions. Everyone's working well together. The young players are finally coming out and working well. And the biggest issue was when they lost the seniors last year, Parker French, Ben Johnson, CJ Hinojosa, and Brooks Marlowe. The last 3 guys, CJ Hinojosa, Brooks Marlowe, and Ben Johnson, they were relied on to get out onto the plate and make a hit and get on base every single time they were up. And that was something they were really good at, really consistent with, and that's just something these young players have to go out and do as well. So as far as this Texas team is going to go, I'm not really sure. I think they'll do great in Big 12 play just considering they beat Tech, and you know Tech's going to come back into Big 12 tournament with a vengeance, which is going to be totally fine. I think Texas can handle it. But as for postseason, I think it's just as much as Texas wants it. We'll see. I don't know.
All right. Thank you, Elissa. Luke?
Yeah, I think for the postseason, it's just going to be they need to rely on Coach Augie Garrido's experience. Listen to him. Most likely it's his last year, so there's no doubt that they're going to want to play for him and potentially, you know, can make some noise. But it's going to have to be rely on the experience of the elders.
All right. Texas finds itself 4th in Big 12 Conference and face later this week down the highway opponent Texas State tomorrow. Later this week, they are up against the competitive Oklahoma State Cowboys, as Elissa mentioned. We'll see if they can ride the momentum straight into victory. Elissa, thank you for coming on and fantastic analysis as always.
Thanks, Kat. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, when we come back, we'll take our discussion to another Texas Diamond. Keep it real, keep it here. This is College Press Box.
Welcome back to College Press Box. The Texas softball team hosted Oklahoma State this past weekend. The Horns were coming off a series loss to Oklahoma and were 2-6 in Big 12 play. College Press Box Jonathan Polasic was at McCombs Field.
Whenever Tiara Davis is on the mound, the Texas Longhorns are used to seeing her rack up strikeout after strikeout. Today was a little bit different as the defense was the star of the show. There were several highlight reel-worthy plays made throughout the game, including 2 spectacular diving grabs. Here's second baseman Stephanie Seo on the defense's mentality.
Every time we step on defense, our mentality is always get to whatever you can get to, and try and make great plays and make the routine plays, make the great plays, and you come out on top when you do those things.
Seo's RBI triple and Hansel's RBI single to make it 4-0 Texas in the bottom of the 4th proved to be the deciding factor in the game, as the Oklahoma State Cowgirls would rally back and score 2 runs in the bottom of the 7th to make it a more interesting game, but in which Texas eventually pulled it out and won 4-2.
I'll take the triple any day, can't get greedy, but once it left my bat, I knew it was a great hit, and I knew it was either going to be really close to going out or out, so get around the bases as quickly as possible, and that's exactly what me and the rest of my teammates did.
Seo's RBI triple brought in both Reagan Hathaway and Devin Tunney, which provided the Longhorns what they needed to win the game. But on a day that started with defense, it also ended with defense to end any Oklahoma State threat in the 7th inning. I'm Jonathan Polasic, College Press Box.
The Horns took both games on the weekend to complete the Big 12 sweep. Texas won Game 3 8-7 as Tiara Davis clinched the victory with a top of the 7th strikeout. Sophomore Paige Von Sprecken led the Horns on the offense, going 3 for 4 with a home run and 4 RBIs. The 2016 season has been up and down for the Texas softball program, and a late charge may be here just in time for the postseason. The Longhorns will face Texas Southern at home on Wednesday.
And Luke, this was the first sweep Texas pulled off this season. What did they do differently that they were able to walk away victorious?
Defense, defense, defense. Tiara Davis was incredible over the weekend. She was able to set the tone in Game 1 with an early victory, only allowing 2 unearned runs off 3 hits, and then closed out the game for the Horns in Game 3. Their team is on the largest winning streak since April 6th and seem to have recovered from their midseason woes.
And the Horns find themselves now 5th in Big 12, 5-6 in conference play. With Baylor, Kansas, and Iowa State down the road, what are the postseason expectations for this team?
Well, Kansas and Iowa State are actually sitting in the 5th and 6th position behind Texas in the Big 12. So both of those games, as long as Texas relies on that strong defense, should be able to get the win. As far as closing out the regular season against Baylor, that's going to be a tough game, and it's going to take their best to knock off a conference rival like the Bears.
Well, hopefully they will be able to gain those last few conference wins to help carry that momentum against Baylor. So Texas has a single game against Texas Southern this Wednesday, and head coach Connie Clark says the Horns will need to utilize their entire roster before they head into a series against Kansas. Stay tuned, folks. When we come back, we will take you to the fairway and tell you how Texas volleyball fared in spring play. Thanks for sticking with us, folks. Let's get right into it. Texas women's golf earned runner-up honors at the Big 12 Championships after carding a third round 288 at the Dominion Country Club this past Sunday. 4 Texas golfers finished in the top 20, and sophomore Sophia Schubert and junior Julia Beck finished in the top 5. The last time Texas finished in the top 5 at Big 12 Championships was in 2005. Coach Ryan Murphy said he was proud of this team's performance, and it was a tall task to keep up with the Oklahoma State Cowboys, who walked away with the Big 12 title. The Horns will enter regionals as an 11 seed at the San Antonio regional site on May 7th.
The Baylor women's tennis team upset the Longhorns 4-2 on Saturday at Westwood Country Club in Austin. The Horns' early deficit put some pressure on the singles matches, but Baylor's Kia Jennerit knocked off UT sophomore Danny Wagelin to close out the match. The Longhorns are currently ranked 5th in the Big 12 and 24th in the nation. Despite the loss, Texas will still receive a first-round bye at next week's Big 12 championship.
Texas track and field competed at the LSU Alumni Gold Meet on Saturday, and Texas posted a total of 3 NCAA leading times. Senior Courtney Okolu was the star of the meet. Okolu broke her own collegiate record in the 400-meter dash. She cut more than a quarter second off her previous time and finished the run at 49.57 seconds. Texas track and field will compete at the Drake Relays in Des Moines, Iowa this weekend.
Texas volleyball closed out its spring season at the Collegiate Showcase on Saturday. The Horns knocked off Baylor and Texas A&M, but fell to conference rival Oklahoma in 3 sets. The Longhorns finished off their spring season 5-2-2 and will look to carry their momentum into the fall. Texas has made the NCAA tournament Final Four 7 out of the last 8 years and will begin the 2016 fall season ranked number 2 in the country. When we return, we'll discuss the upcoming NFL draft and one of Texas basketball stars declares professional status. Welcome back to College Press Box. Former Texas Longhorn football coach Fred Akers was inducted into the Cotton Bowl Hall of Fame last week. The class of 2016 included Eric Dickerson, Bob Golick, Tony Balesi, Fred Marshall, and Dan Petty. Akers is the 3rd most winningest coach at UT, only trailing Darrell K. Royal and Mack Brown. His success will forever be remembered here at the 40 Acres.
And speaking of Texas football, last year in 2014, Texas bounced back from being shut out in the draft. In 2015, they had 5 selections in the 2015 class, including first-round defensive tackle Malcolm Brown. This year, there is 12 eligible Longhorns for the draft. Luke, how do we foresee the Horns' fate for this 2016 NFL draft?
I think Texas is sending a pretty good class to the 2016 NFL draft, but one of the players I want to most anticipated to see where he goes is Jonathan Gray. He had kind of a mediocre career, I'd say, at Texas, but I think he's still a strong running back and can do some great things in the NFL, so it'd be interesting to see where he ends up and how he'll fare as a professional.
Absolutely. Gray was definitely one of the leaders in Texas football for the past few years and really helped with the running game. But like you said, we will see. So now let's see what's going to happen in Texas sports later this week. On Tuesday, guys, you got to check out LHN for a baseball game versus Texas State at 6 p.m. And Wednesday, softball versus Texas Southern, also on LHN.
Men's tennis and women's tennis will both be competing at the Big 12 Championships in Stillwater this weekend. And men's golf will also compete at the Big 12 Championship at Whispering Pines Golf Club in Trinity, Texas. Friday, softball will host Kansas for a series throughout the weekend. Baseball will host Oklahoma State. You can catch both of those series throughout the weekend on LHN.
And if you happen to be in Austin on Lady Bird Lake, rowing will begin at 8:20 a.m. versus Virginia. And also the series will continue for softball and baseball versus Kansas and Oklahoma State, also on LHN. And Luke, before we go, we have some big discussion to talk about. This past weekend, Texas point guard Isaiah Taylor made a big announcement. Taylor said he will not return to the 40 Acres for his senior year, but instead is entering the NBA draft. How will Taylor's absence affect the Texas men's basketball team next year?
There is no doubt that the absence of Isaiah Taylor will affect the Longhorns next season. He was a leading point guard for the program and actually was the leading scorer throughout his career here. But however, I think the rise of Kerwin Roach, Eric Davis III, and Tevin Mack will make the transition a little bit easier for the Horns. All three of those freshmen played versatile roles at the guard position and showed leadership positions on both sides of the court. So I think Shaka can make use of those guys very wisely.
Absolutely, and they're his own guys that he'll be able to really construct his own Shaka Smart Texas team. Now, folks, we're in the middle of our Support Students Voices campaign, and this is our fundraiser that comes to fund all of Texas student media, specifically TSTV. That is support students. supportstudentvoices.org/TSTV. So we would really appreciate some donations so that we can continue doing what we do. And folks, that's all the time we have with us on College Press Box. Catch us every Monday night at 9:30 and follow us on the Twitter for Texas Sports News at College Press Box. For the best sports debate show on the 40 acres, watch College Crossfire Wednesday nights at 9 p.m., hosted by our very own Reese Miller. They're also on the Twitter at College X Fire. And don't forget, at TSTV Game Day as well. All our shows on YouTube, and a big thanks to Elissa Killebrew and Luke Hendry for joining me. And also, shout out to everyone in the studio and Master Control for making this live event happen. And a special thanks to you viewers for spending your night with us. Until next week, I'm Katerina Biancardi. Have a wonderful night.